Hey everyone, I'm Brian Cahill with God and Country, Tales of the Old Guard. Thank you all that have been watching this. It's been an honor. It's been a lot of fun. Uh, I do have a small favor to ask. 1% of you are subscribed and watching it, and I know from getting to see the analytics, which is a pretty cool thing to me, thousands of you are watching it. So if you would please just like and subscribe, hit that button, and comment. Tell me the things that you like, the things that you don't like, things that you would like to see. Put those in the comments, and I will try my best to answer all of them. Again, I have enjoyed this journey. Thank you for your service. Stay salty. Right on. Thank you. Come on in.
All righty. Thanks for
Appreciate.
having me.
Thanks for coming. This is a big honor. I appreciate it. We'll get we'll get to the meat and bones of it. I'll start off. My guess, Command Sergeant Major Daniel Hagemeier, retired.
Retired. Yes, sir.
He is part of the 1% of the military that ever makes it to that rank. So less than 2% of all Americans ever enlist in the military service. So he's an even higher prestigious amount within those ranks. He worked countless hours during over a 20-year career, uh, prepared hundreds, if not thousands, of soldiers, preparing them for deployments in Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, another deployment to Mosul, Key West, that area. Um, and now he's retired, living that the good life, the good life. How is that retired life treating you?
Retirement is fantastic. I'll be honest. So, yeah, 33 years total service time in the military.
33.
Yeah,
Wow.
33 total years.
I was wondering how you did it so quick because I was like that's a fast track. Okay.
Yeah, multi-component. So I actually started in the active army and did 3 years. Graduated high school here in Bremerton, Olympic High School in 1990. And then joined the active army, did 3 years. Artillery, that's the only job I've ever had, which I'm not going to say I'm the only sergeant major that probably only has one job, but certainly there's a lot of sergeant majors that have had multiple different jobs throughout their career. But I kind of pride myself on the fact that I've only had one job, one Army official MOS, FDC for the artillery. That's what I've always done.
Oh,
And so started active Army, did that for 3 years, went to South Korea for my first overseas duty, and then right back to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and was not too happy about that. But I met an amazing woman there, and so we're 28 years into marriage now, and got two amazing boys out of the deal, and ended up getting off active duty in 93 and joining the Washington Army National Guard in August of 93. And so that's where my guard career started.
how did you convince her to come to the Northwest? Because I lived in Kansas for a little spell, and I know it's tough to get people to leave there.
It is. Yeah, she actually had been out here previously.
Yeah.
So she had moved out from Chicago with a girlfriend. One of her not childhood but adult friends that she made. Her dad was actually a retired Army also, and retired out of Fort Sheridan, yeah, outside of Chicago, Illinois, and she ended up staying there when they moved back to Oklahoma. And so she had moved out to the Gig Harbor area with this girlfriend who was dating a Navy guy at the time, and then things didn't necessarily work out, and so she ended up moving back home for a few months. And so I had met her while she was in back living at home in Oklahoma.
That is that is
So,
outstanding.
so yeah, so then when we met, it was kind of like, "You're from where?" "Oh, I know that area." And so then it was kind of destined to be. And so I asked her to move out with us, and so yeah, we moved back to Washington. and then joined the Guard. And first unit was two of the 146 Field Artillery Alpha Battery out in Montesano.
Now, how did you celebrate when you got out?
Well, so let's see, celebrating my exit from the military. Well, um, we had decided to live the life of nomads. So we sold everything, sold our house, sold extra vehicles, sold pretty much everything other than our keepsakes, and decided that we were going to go live on the road for the next 5 years. And so we bought a 42-foot fifth wheel and an F450 truck. And so we just completed year 2 of traveling full time. So we full time RV across the country. And then in the summertime, my parents have a lake house up outside of Tahuya on Wooten Lake. And so we parked the RV there in exchange for doing some remodel projects, keeping the place up, and doing some repairs on the lake house over the summer, and can reconnect with all the family that we have local. And then in September, we take off for another 9-month road trip across America. And so that's what we decided to do.
Now, how the kids feel about that, knowing that they can't move back home?
Well, so at the time, our oldest son, he was already out of the house. He was living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And so no issue for him, although I had probably 8 totes of his childhood stuff still in the attic. So we did a speed trip over to Milwaukee, dropped off his childhood. We had totes of Pokemon cards and G.I. Joes and Star Wars action figures and playing cards and baseball cards, football cards, everything. And so,
did you
yes,
did you realize you had a small fortune
I
in
did
your?
realize that. However, it was his fortune to do with what he wanted. And so Vicki and I made a road trip back to Milwaukee with our car packed full of totes and dropped his stuff off. And then our youngest son was in college at WSU. And we pretty much called him and said, "Hey, I know you're graduating this year, but the house just sold. And so you're going to need to figure out some place to live."
Wow, right
And
on.
so luckily, his aunt, my sister, offered up a bedroom at her place in South Hill, Puyallup, and he was able to finish college and then move in with her for probably about 12 months until got a really great job coming out of college and ended up getting his own place in Lakewood last summer. So but yeah, so everybody's good. Yeah, there's still some moments where we're like, oh, I miss the old place, and we have some friends in the neighborhood that we've been back to see already this summer, and we drive by the old house, and of course we're nitpicking, right? We're like, oh, they didn't keep the grass up, or oh, those shrubs need to be cut back, or oh, they need some painting on the porch. But it's been fun. It's the life on the road. It's been very interesting. There's so many amazing people in the world, and
I
you
was I
know,
was gonna say, how's it feel getting that perspective out of the Northwest? Like when you see the
uh,
rest of the country. I mean, do you feel like when we're here, we're living in a bubble, or
sometimes to some degree, sure. And we do have a goal, though. We do have a goal with our travels. We've decided that we don't want to own a house in Washington. We don't want to retire up here because of the weather mostly. Um, things have gotten very expensive in the state of Washington. And so, because we're young and we're retired, full time retired, not planning on going back to work, there's more affordable places to go that have nicer climates. And so our goal was to sell everything, travel for 5 years, and figure out where this mythical retirement awesome community is to be part of. And so having a 42-foot fifth wheel, I mean, we have a bath and a half. We have a big kitchen. We have a refrigerator. We got solar panels. So we boondock a lot out in the woods. And so having all of these resources in the RV, we can go and stay for long periods of time and really kind of get to know communities as we search for this location that we want to eventually buy a house, and not be pressured into, everybody says the Villages in Florida is an amazing place. I wouldn't want to go there, buy a house, and then find out that it's not really for us. So living the
or
life on the road, and then we can just find a place that we think we like, and then just spend more time to really ensure that that's right for us.
that's
So
outstanding.
yeah,
I I shared with you my dream was to move to our property in Hawaii, but the volcano got more active than we had bought property in Pahoa, and the whole reason was because of the volcano. It was only about 15 minutes to go watch it as it goes into
yeah,
the ocean until the lava flows started changing course and wiped out the neighborhood next to us.
oh
So
wow,
it kind of delayed our plans of like maybe that's not the spot we want to settle.
yeah,
So but we still have the lot, so we have to make that decision.
sure,
Where you're like in a really good position to like, nah, I don't want to be here for
yeah,
hurricane season, or I don't want to be here for, because even places like Texas, we know sometimes it's nice during certain parts of the year, but it can, the storms there are like nothing that we have here in
yeah.
the Northwest.
Yeah, and so going back to kind of answer really the question was, the Pacific Northwest is absolutely gorgeous. Like there are not many places that have the beauty that we have here, and all of the things that this state offers, from the ocean to the Puget Sound to the mountains, lakes, rivers, greenery, hiking. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful for 4 months out of the year. It's the other, 8 months out of the year that's like, it's kind of dreary and looking for something else. And so, when we're looking at places, I mean, we were in South Texas for a while. We really liked the Corpus Christi area, but then it's on the Gulf. There's hurricanes. The wind blows there pretty much nonstop. And it's so far. Texas is such a huge state. Like it's a multi-day trip to get out of there. And so now we're kind of looking more on the East Coast. Probably South Carolina
Oh
is
wow.
probably our number one state right now. Um, and for multiple reasons. One, the weather is consistently pretty nice. They get a little chilly in the winter, probably a freak snowstorm here and there, but nothing too bad. We still have the salt water with the Atlantic. There's concerns with hurricanes, of course, but you're going to get that anywhere you're close to salt water. And so, but really the climate, the history, that side of the country, when you look in relative perspective to Washington State, the history back there is phenomenal. And we've really enjoyed being on the East Coast and seeing like St. Augustine and some of these other historic cities. And, you know, thinking long term, we buy a place and then hopefully we'll have people to come visit us, right, at this new place. Or
You
if
always,
nothing
yeah.
else, we're going to have RV spots for people to stay in that are traveling. And so then it's like, well, if we're hosting people, well, what are we going to go take them to do? So let's get into where the history is and have some sites. And then the states are so small back there. It's pretty easy traveling from. You can get from South Carolina to DC in an afternoon. You can get from South Carolina to Florida, in an afternoon. So that's our leading contender, at least right now. We're thinking, and also, military benefits,
Yes.
because I am retired military and I want to take advantage of anything that I got coming in the way of military benefits. And there's, every state has different programs on how they treat their veterans, and
Yeah.
specifically disabled veterans. And I feel that Washington State is far, far behind the times on how they treat their disabled veterans, and what what entitlements that a person that served 20 plus years and got out with some aches and pains, right? They just don't have the programs that a lot of these other states already have in place and haven't had in place for many years. And so, again, back to finances and retirement and fixed income, right? How do you make your money go further? Well, if they're going to give me some benefits to live in a different state, then maybe that's something to consider.
I gotta ask because you were east of the mountains for what, a year and a half.
Yeah.
What was it like seeing sunshine and not being on the Yakima training center?
I think my first summer, it was a little odd. Like I felt like I wanted to go and just be there, like be in the motor pool when the guns came in, right? It was like, and then it's like, oh, that's not really my place, I guess. There's other people that are doing that job. It was hard to get used to, and what's interesting is that my youngest son actually joined the Army National Guard, and he is a 88 Mike. He's a truck driver, and he got assigned to 1041st originally. He was going to school at Washington State University on the east side, and got assigned to 1041st, and did that for a few years, and then he actually went to the FSC Fox Company for the artillery battalion, which was kind of cool. So I got to
Wow.
promote him to E5, in front of the battalion down in Olympia at the new armory. And so I still have like a piece of me is still tied to the battalion. I still have friends in the battalion. I still get phone calls periodically from people that are in the battalion. And although I have not served in the battalion, I did, 19 years in the battalion total. And I think I left in like 2012 and then went
Wow.
on to do bigger and better things, they say. But I always had a little piece of my heart has always been in 20146, the artillery battalion.
I was service battery, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was amazing that even when had I'd went to recruiting for a few years and then to aviation, but when I would come over to Camp Murray, I was amazed at how many of the field artillery captains and first
Oh
sergeants and sergeants had promoted up and were working out of Camp
yeah,
Murray. It was as they would say, 2146 North.
yeah, yeah, for
It was
sure.
I was just, but for me, I think the good thing with that is having, I think I fueled everybody their vehicles over the years, so it was,
Right,
I had that unique relationship. I knew a lot of captains and first sergeants, and as they promoted, I still knew them
right.
as they were promoting. So it was kind of a neat connecting point for me, even after going to aviation. Uh, how did you feel when, because when I came in 2000, I want to say it was 2001 was when uh, they had done the switch over from the howitzers to the
Oh,
paladins,
right.
field artillery. How did you all feel about that? But then you get this impressive new weapon system, and then it converts to the tow
Yeah,
howitzers or the tow paladins. How what was the emotion range
yeah,
going through y'all through that?
yeah. Well, I started on the M109A3 howitzer in South Korea. So when I was assigned to South Korea, I already had the self-propelled howitzers over there. Now I was in the FDC in a 577, but we did the data for the artillery firing solution for the self-propelled howitzers. So fast forward 3 years out of there, I went to Fort Sill, back to Washington, and I think when I got to the Washington Army National Guard, what's funny, you had Master Sergeant Haggerty on recently, on one of your podcasts. I really enjoyed that. He's probably the very first person that I ever remember in the Guard meeting.
Oh, wow.
Was probably Sergeant Haggerty at the time, a former tanker that was forced to convert to artillery. So he was probably the oldest person that I remember in the unit at the time. And then, of course, he gets promoted, I get promoted, and we kind of, our careers kind of just stayed together in the artillery all those years. But but I think at that time they were converting the guard from like the M109A2 to the A3, which was kind of just a small upgrade on the howitzer. But and then over the years, we the conversion from like the A5 to the Paladin was significant, right? This is where the gun gets to determine its own coordinates and firing solution, which was kind of odd to me. Like, I mean, we're in the FDC, we're making all the calculations, and then now we're relinquishing this duty to a howitzer
I
crew.
I remember moving your boxes of, because you had all those different
Yeah,
type of maps and
yeah,
grids, but you had, I mean, so much of that manual transmission is gone now.
yeah,
Everything was becoming automated,
yeah,
computerized, and but when you look at that, it almost has that feel of like, I don't want to say the Civil War, but boy, it had that feeling
yeah.
of like coming from almost that Korean War feel
Oh
to
yeah,
like, hey, we're on the edge of something different here.
yeah,
This is we're not quite Star Trek, but we're
uh,
starting to make that those little jumps.
yeah. And I would say that a fire direction section could compute howitzer firing data using slide rules and tabular firing tables, like books, right? Faster than the computer could compute in the day. And so even when computers were first a thing, it was like, well, why do I need this? We can do it faster manually using our slide rules. Um, but then the computers got better, the computers got faster, they got more accurate in some cases. But but I think that pivotal piece was really relinquishing the duties of that firing solution to a howitzer crew. Was like, I mean, that was like Star Trek for us. It was almost like we were getting this new howitzer, and now we don't have a job to do anymore because they can do it. But there was still a lot of oversight that needed to be done and backup systems in place. But I think as a Canon crew member, somebody that worked on the Canon, working in the Palatine was amazing. I mean, everything about that was awesome. Firing it, driving it, um, maybe not cleaning. Cleaning might not have been awesome, but you're inside the turret, right? So when the weather's bad, you close the hatch. You turn the heater on. You got an MRE heater. I mean, the creature comforts inside that Paladin were far, far superior than now we have a towed howitzer, and the crew is out. They're out in elements, rain, snow, sleet. They're out there, dark at night, you're trying to do everything in the dark. Where inside the Paladin, you had your red light or white light.
I know it's different firing missions, but I personally uh, appreciated the Paladin over like the Abrams, because one fuel port is a lot nicer than four fuel
Yeah.
port. I mean, it was just I had helped. I think it was 303rd on when we had early deployment, when we had went to Hunter Liggett and Camp Robinson down
Mm.
there. And that that fueling mission was awful. I mean, it was just it was myself and one other sergeant from another unit, and it took us all day to fuel those guns because there was nobody driving them up. So we were having to
Oh,
unstake and move
oh,
the
and
truck.
move
Like
every.
you could move, the hoses would reach about four
Oh,
of the
geez.
guns, but it was a long process,
Mm.
especially in 117 degree
For
weather.
sure.
But how no, and this is one of those things I asked because it was, especially from the guard perspective, that difference of active duty. Active duty, you're using your gun, you're falling in on your gun, your equipment. When you deploy, you're usually deploying with that
Mm-hmm.
equipment. Uh, our group ends up not only once but twice deploying
Right.
without their weapon systems, come back home, and then it changes to the toe. I mean, that
Right.
how gut wrenching was that for the unit when they, or the units, I should say, the
Yeah.
batteries.
Well, I was see, we got back in '09, and I think we had the Howitz. I think we had the Paladin for a couple of years because as I was transitioning out in 11 or 12, I think is when they were switching to the 19 or 8, the towed howitzer. So I didn't really even get to experience much of that. Um, but from the people that I knew that were in the unit, they did not like it at all. Again, you're out in the elements. If you think of on a modern battlefield, and you're going to take something downrange that you're going to have to survive in. I mean, what better to survive in than essentially a huge tank, right? So um, I think that was a tough pill to swallow, but trying to look at the advantages of it, right? It's all perspective. Um, and so I think the maintenance on a towed howitzer is a lot less. They're more mobile for sure. So you're easy to take that artillery piece to home station if you want to take it to home station. It doesn't require a flatbed truck and extra resources, money specifically. Anytime a howitzer had to go to Montesano, somebody paid a bill for that howitzer to get low buoyed all the way to Montesano. So having a towed howitzer for the guard to get it to where you need it to be, I think there's some advantages there, and probably looking at the Dom Ops perspective, because the one thing that we lacked as an artillery battalion was vehicles to move our people. Right, if you think of a normal set of MTO equipment for an artillery battalion that's self-propelled, most of your dudes and dudettes are riding in a tracked vehicle. And so when we went towed, now every section has, an LMTV or an MTV. So we could actually move our personnel from point A to point B organically. We didn't need buses, we didn't need extra vehicles. And so I think from the Dom Ops perspective that the Guard has in the state of Washington, I think there were some advantages there. Um, but a true artilleryman hates the 1908, in my opinion. I think the Paladin was kind of the shiznit of the day. So,
I will say to this day that when when all three gun batteries would be on the hill and would fire at the same,
yeah,
in unison, and you would watch that mountain just exploding in the distance. I it was kind of awe inspiring. There was nothing like
yeah,
watching impact. It was just, uh, and just the boom of it. It's hard to explain to folks who have never
yeah.
been around that or near that, but it's just that. Uh, yeah. Anyway, I'll quit rambling on that. Now you've gotten out. You're enjoying retirement, but for like our younger sergeants out there, or even in officer and enlisted ranks, what mistakes are you seeing soldiers make at retirement? Because I know for myself, I had a really good command sergeant major when I was in aviation
Mm,
who had told me 18 months out to start getting ready. He says do not wait till 90 days. He says you year and a half out you need to start that process.
yeah,
And I'll be a son of a gun. He was right, because I, even though I had put in my letter of intent and had gone to the all the meetings and the briefings, uh, I almost got an AWOL letter my first drill retired
Hmm.
because something hadn't gone through
Hmm.
with the paperwork
Yeah.
for my last drill, and I was just wondering what advice do you
Yeah,
give?
I think so. With that question, I think it helps to back up just a little bit more than that. Um, obviously serving in the guard for so many years, and I made some good career decisions in my time. I worked hard to get this retirement. But I think a lot of people are so quick to be like, oh, I'm tired of this, or I don't want to do it, or the benefits aren't going to be good, or they're quick to give up their guard career. And I think the first step is, look at it as the light at the end of the tunnel, right? 20-year retirement. Now, I was an AGR for 25 years. I had 3 years of active duty prior to that, so I retired with 28 years of active federal service. But even as a traditional soldier, an M-Day soldier that retires at 20 years, there's a lot of benefits for you as a gray area retiree. Um, and, I think it's important to really educate the population of what those benefits are. And then I know that 59 and a half seems like this far out place, but it doesn't take long to get there. And those people, there hasn't been a single person that I have ever met, regardless of their situation, that has said, I wish I would have got out at 10 years, right? But there's a thousand people that I have met on my travels across the country the last 2 years. Thousands of people that I have met that come up to me and see me wearing something military and ask a question. And they're like, oh, yeah, I served and I wish I would have served longer. I wish I would have gotten to 20 years. And so then you hit your 59 and a half, and then your pay kicks in, your health care kicks in. And then, what you're getting to at that 18 year, which it's talked about, but it's not really, really talked about enough, is the VA benefits. And I think I've talked with active duty people and I've talked with Guard people, and I feel that the Washington Army National Guard, in my opinion, did a great job of educating at least me, um, as a individual getting ready to retire, on what my responsibilities are to request VA benefits. And there's a guy out there listening. I hope he's listening. We spent a lot of years together, and I keep bending his ear every time I talk to him about filing a claim, and he just won't do it. He just won't take the time to do it. He's got paperwork, he's got documents, and it's not that hard to do. So, Doug, if you're listening, I'm going to call you and call you out. But yeah, and it is very important, like you said, 18 months out, start collecting all those documents and the paperwork, and nobody's going to do it for you, right? It's not like they're cutting your retirement order. Somebody's going to do that and give it to you, right? Somebody's going to give you a flag, and somebody's going to hopefully give you an award at retirement. Those things are going to just happen. But filing a VA claim, it's your responsibility to do, and it's your responsibility to have the paperwork. But there are so many resources out there through local veteran service organizations or other retirees that that can help walk you through the process. But
Are there any that you recommend, especially being having been down in Olympia for so long? I mean, well, you were at Camp Murray also a long
yeah,
for quite a while, but
um, let's see. So Camp Murray, that they have a VSO that's there, Annie DeAndrea.
Oh,
Um,
she's still there.
I don't know if she's still there.
Oh, she was
She was
She was
kind of getting
amazing.
ready to retire. She's a little hard to get a hold of sometimes, but you can go there. I was in Port Orchard at the VFW the other day, and they
Oh,
do I think it was every Tuesday, they do a meet with a VSO day at the Port Orchard VFW. So if you're a veteran, you could go in there and just meet with the VSO and kind of get the ball rolling. And if you're close to a military installation, there's VSOs that are usually military retirees that are paid on post that can help with the process. But I would reach out to probably one of your VFWs or American Legion or something in the area, and then just go in and ask, hey, do you have a VSO on duty? Do you have somebody that can help file a claim? But yeah, the paperwork, that's the beginning of it as you're hitting that window and really understanding the paperwork that you have, right? We've all accumulated these medical records over the years. It's really looking through that and seeing what's in there and what you could qualify for.
I also encourage folks, especially at the 2 year mark, make sure that you're getting those the medicals, those things done,
Right.
because it is much your claim is much more dependent on showing it while you're in
Time.
service.
Yeah.
It's a lot tougher once you get out and your record no longer exists. I mean, I'm sure they always have something of you being there, but
Right.
it's tough to get some of those records after you're out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's been an interesting. I haven't got to meet that's you're the second person to tell me about the Port Orchard group, and I hope to meet them.
Oh,
So I am glad to hear that. What do you think about the new retirement system? Because when I know you had to been on the same one that I
yeah.
was, the old school. Um, I will say one thing that I don't know if I kind of scared in some sense, but at the other time, I love the fact that if a soldier serves 6 years, they still walk away with
Yeah.
something. Where
Absolutely.
before I knew so many soldiers with 17, 18, and 19 years
Mm-hmm.
who stepped out with nothing,
Right.
and that's hard. That's hard to watch,
Yeah.
because they gave a lot of time to their country,
Yeah.
and it was just like missed it by that much.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I would start, with the BRS, the blended retirement system. There's no company in America or in the civilized world that's going to change a retirement system that's for your benefit. So we'll start with that. In my opinion, right? It's They're not going to change it to give you more money, right? Um, they're going to change it to benefit themselves. That's the way I feel. However, with that, we also know that the statistics of military service is that most people aren't ever going to make it to retirement age. And so I really feel like what the government is banking on is that soldier is going to just get their 1% for free, right? Their 1% in their 401k that they select, and banking on the fact that they're never going to go in and do the matching for the other 6%, right? And I think a lot of people are that way, right? Maybe they didn't come up or they weren't raised in a family that talked about finances or investments, or maybe they're scared about the stock market or something. Um, and so I think there's a lot of people that maybe don't know how it works. There's risk with everything. But I think somebody that comes in that is educated and seeks some financial counseling, I think in the long run, they could benefit using that system. And certainly those people that are just doing military service for a goal, whether it's, pay off college debt, maybe they came in to go to college and now they're done and now they want to get on with their life without being in the Guard. Like you said, I mean, they're walking away with something for their service, which I think is good.
If I were, I was I was 31 when I came out of basic training in AIT, so I was a little late in the game when I
Yeah,
when I started. But if I were, I would love, that hindsight. If I were 18 now coming in and using that matching on the blended retirement system, paying it used to be like $100 for the TRICARE,
right,
knowing that right there. I know some of the young ones, it's like, hey, that drill check's what's going to get me through school
right,
for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
right.
Yeah, that's rough. But if you're not in that situation, you could be making some financial choices with that drill check that are going to set you up for a very prosperous future 20 years down the line. And just having TRICARE alone was
Yeah,
saved me so much grief with 5 kids. It was a nice, that was enough for joining the
yeah.
the Guard right there from
Well, and I
TRICARE.
think we saw a lot of people get out of the National Guard for whatever reason, right? They fell short of their 20 years. They got tired of it. They didn't like their unit. I mean, pick a thing, right? But they had gotten out of the Guard. And then once the Guard had that medical TRICARE Reserve Select that you were able to do as a traditional Guard member, we saw a whole bunch of people that came back in specifically for that because it's a fraction. They're getting health care for a fraction of what they were paying at their civilian job. And so, I mean, there have been some good benefits that that Guard has come around on. I remember when I first came into the Guard, we had the commissary card, which was a little card that you only got to go to the commissary 12 times a year, and you would show them your card with your ID, and they would
Punch
punch
the
the card out.
Yep.
You had your 12 trips a year, and so now we get to go unlimited. So
I think that was one of the the beginning of the war. I think that was one of
yeah,
those nice changes that they did for the Guard and Reserve.
sure.
Was now gonna backtrack a little bit because I standard I always, especially those of us that were on that first deployment, you know, we'll start off. We're we're a peacetime Guard really, and things have been pretty quiet. Drills were a little bit different when I first came in from basic
Right.
training, but it was very very soon after September 11th hits. Where were you? Were you at the armory when it happened?
I was actually driving to the armory when September 11th happened. I heard it on the radio in my car. Driving to, I was an AGR station at the Olympia Armory, and so something about planes crashed into the World Trade Center, and I was like, oh, that's odd. Like, why are they driving planes into the World Trade Center? And so by the time I got to the armory, they already had the TV was on, and we were watching live feeds of everything that was going on. So scary time for America.
Did you? Because I ended up pulling guard duty down at the Centralia Armory when that happened, and I heard that y'all were uh, gearing up a lot more up at the headquarters. Um, what was going through your mind in particular? Because you're married at this time, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
married.
you're
Yeah, had 2 kids in the house. Wife worked full time. Um, I didn't really know what to make of it. I think that in those days I wasn't really in tune with what was going on in the world, right? So, I knew that we had troops in Afghanistan. I knew that we had troops in other places around the country, but it wasn't televised much. I didn't feel like at the time, and so I was just doing the guard thing, right? Just working day to day, trying to prepare for the next drill, and then all of a sudden this happens, and so I think initially I don't think anybody really put two and two together on where this whole thing was going to take off and go, and then eventually, this deployment, largest deployment in the state of Washington that we would go on. Um, so I don't know. I think it took a good couple of weeks for us to really kind of figure that, yeah, this is the start of it, and we need to really start looking at our training plans and our ability to do our job as not only an individual soldier but as an artillery unit, because you don't know, right? We didn't know at the time what the mission was going to be, but we knew that it wasn't going to be long before we were going to get called up. So
And I always share what a unique experience that was. That when we did deploy, we were with the last of the Vietnam soldiers
yeah,
in our unit,
for
and
sure.
by my last deployment, the soldiers were younger than my kids.
Yeah,
It was a strange. That was my only regret. Not uh, I've shared this before too, but I had really hoped to see our flags turn back,
yeah,
to peacetime. I had hoped to be there long enough to see the end of that conflict, but I not quite.
yeah.
It was that piece of it was a little bittersweet. What was it like when you came home from either deployment?
Yeah,
How did you
no,
do?
I mean,
Because
obviously the first one was an eternity, right? It was the first deployment. It was the longest time period away. Um, and then to be on Fort Lewis for 2.5 months and not being able to go home in the evening, that was tough in itself. It's one thing if we would have just went to California and went, to NTC and trained for 2 months, but we're right here in our back door trying to train and still in contact with family, but not able to go home. That was rough. And then, it's a first for everybody, right? It's a first for my wife being home alone for, you know,
my first cell phone was while we were on Fort Lewis,
oh,
and it was one of those brick Nokias,
yeah,
and I only had it until we deployed and give it to my wife at that time to take back. But I it was I didn't know what to expect when we got there.
yeah,
I mean, when we got there and they were digging the posts to put in payphones, I was just because I thought it would be months before I got a letter to home
right,
or was able to get a letter from home, and we get there and there's an actual payphone being put in. Um, or well, you know, you'd punch in the credit card
right,
number or whatever the phone card number on it. But
yeah,
I was like, oh my gosh, this is what a time to be alive,
right,
for a deployment. It was just not what my father or grandfather had gone through because they could go months or years without hearing from
right.
anything from home. Um,
Yeah, so yeah, the first deployment, it was a long deployment, 15, 16 months. I think we were gone in total. And then, you come back and then you do all the processing and everything. And, it was tough. And, wife worked full time the entire deployment, raised two kids. I did get some help, some from local family members that would come over and watch the boys or something, give my wife a break. And, um, but it was tough to get phone calls too. You would call the 1-800 number, whatever 16 digits you're typing in the phone to get on a line, and then you got your 10 minutes of whatever on the MWR line, and
it's 110 degrees while you're
right,
trying to make the call. Oh, and there's also 10 other soldiers behind you waiting for
waiting.
you to finish. So
Yeah, for sure. But then it's your time is limited, so you want to talk about, how's the family, what's going on, tell me. But then she's just as curious about what you're doing, right? Which a lot of things we weren't allowed to talk about. So, you kind of redirect, well, how are the boys? And, you know, how are things at home? And what broke this week? Because something always broke, washing
Yeah.
machine, dishwasher, whatever. It never happens when you're home. It always, you go away somewhere. But yeah, first deployment was certainly a tough one, and like you said, like we packed everything and the kitchen sink because we didn't know really what, we knew that we were going to be doing some guard missions, but we didn't really know what the environment was really going to be like. And then we got there and it was like, oh, well, why did we bring 25 connexes of stuff that we're not really going to need? And so I think by the next deployment, although we were going from Kuwait on the first deployment to Iraq the second deployment, I felt like communication was much improved with the unit that we were replacing in Iraq, and we could make some decisions on, no, we're not going to bring those things on this deployment because that's not our mission, right? And so we streamlined our packing list. The things that needed to go was much improved the second time around. Um, but you're in a little bit more of a hostile environment the second time around, and so I think the nerves were almost as bad, if not worse, than the first deployment. Um,
I get a mix from the fellows when I talk to them, because there's the ones who tell me, because I did I gave up aviation to come work rear deck for you guys uh, that year, and that was I wish I had just went forward,
mm,
because I had signed for all that equipment and could not sign it to the commander because he was Title 10,
oh,
and
that
I
whole
was I
thing.
was stuck with it. But I wish I had went forward by the second month of you guys being gone, because it was, I thought I would be, I don't know, doing like a 7 to 1700 shift, and it was not that at all. It was usually like 05 to sometimes 9 o'clock at night, before
Right.
myself and Sergeant Newherder would get out of there, and I was like, I saved nothing by I still don't see my family. I still don't, it always coming back to that armory, because originally I believe I was supposed to be at the Centralia Armory, which was like
Oh,
10 minutes from my house,
uh,
and things got changed, and I was like, oh, this is, but I knew that whatever I was going through, it wasn't the same as what you all were going through. And a lot of the soldiers told me, there were, well, I should say it was a split bag, because there were the ones that said, I wish this had been our first mission, because they enjoyed it. So they felt more like they had done what they were trained for.
mm-hmm.
Where uh, I had a lot of folks also tell me it was like, no, I like Kuwait a lot better. I like the mission that we had at Kuwait. So I was just really like, wow, I did not realize we had that broad of a spectrum in
Mm,
in our group, because it was, I think personally, just all the mount training and all the convoy training that we did. I just felt like that second mission would have been
right.
more what everybody was ready for or
Uh,
had wanted to do. So, uh, but when you come home, I know it's a little bit different for you because you're AGR, so you still have, the people that you've been deployed with for you're still pretty much in contact. You're going to be coming back in to work with
mm,
them. But did you have any of that challenge of transition coming back from, a war zone to, I don't want to say civilian life, but you're back home, and all of a sudden that year is, it's like the valve gets shut off. You're like, this has been, our standard operation every day, and now all of a sudden I'm not I'm not in a 120 plus degree desert. I'm not worried about getting mortared or fired at, or
mm,
these type of things. And suddenly, I'm supposed to take. the kids to a game, or we're supposed to do, did you have any of that struggle with coming back into?
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody has a little bit of that, some more so than others. I felt that I was pretty fortunate with the duty location that I had, the position that I was in, and what I was doing. I was probably more fortunate than most other people. Um, we ran convoy security for all of northern Iraq, in between four different bases. So, um, I wasn't out on the convoys though. I was doing operations, at the largest base in northern Iraq. So we had security around the perimeter of over 12,000 soldiers that lived on the base. And so we controlled all the entry control points. We controlled all of the people manning towers. Um, and so, but you're still in an active war zone, and people are still dying on base every day. There was, you know, a a funeral going out every week it seemed like, and so even though we weren't downrange in my duty position, you're still seeing it and living with it every day, which definitely gets hard. And then all of a sudden, like you said, you come back, okay, that's done, but your mind is still there, right? You still have those emotions of the people that are still there. Um, Doug Reek stayed after that second deployment. I think he ended up staying another 4 or 5 months after the unit left. He was going to help the new unit kind of get transitioned in. So he stayed, and Sergeant William C. Spencer, he stayed with them. And Spencer ended up having a heart attack and died in theater. So it's so then you have people that you left there that then came home, eventually. And so yeah, I think there's definitely some emotions there. You're leaving people that you have served with forever, that you're very fond of, that and you're like, well, what's the new unit? How are they going to treat these people? But then by the same token, you're home, and you try and get integrated back into the family, right? I think that's a struggle too, because your wife's been doing everything. She's paying the bills. She's making sure the car payment, the mortgage, the kids' soccer, and all of that stuff. And then you're back, and I think she's hesitant on how much she wants to integrate you. You're hesitant in taking on new things because you don't want to step on toes or change how she's been doing things for the last 12 months. And so, um,
That tension of the civilian change of command, it's that whole, "Oh, okay, normally we're going to ask mom to do this, but is it okay to ask dad
right,
now, or is it,
right.
yeah, it's like, I
Yeah. So that took a while, right? And I think we ended up doing a marriage retreat up in Leavenworth, which was really cool. We got to leave the kids at home and got to go away, just her and I, and get to be with other people that have gone through the same things that we're going through, and kind of share stories and examples and ideas. And the chaplain, I think it was Chaplain Steele that was there at that
yeah.
one. I think we were in Leavenworth, maybe Wenatchee. But yeah, and we did one after the first deployment too. I think we did one after both deployments. And so trying to just those events where you can kind of get in a group of people with like-minded people that are all kind of sharing their experiences, and kind of help one another out. And it's okay to see other people struggling because you're struggling, and talk about it. And if you don't talk about it, you're not going to make any progress, right? And so I would encourage people to do those events. They're really good. But yeah, it took quite a while. Now, as an AGR, yeah, I mean, I took some leave and then we went back to the armory and started, we kind of just jumped right in, started training, started getting training plans and, figuring out, what we were going to do for the next couple of months. Um, and so I think for me, not going back to a civilian job, I feel like that was quite easy because I had been doing the army thing, just deployed, and then now I'm back. I'm still doing the army thing, and so I think the hard part is for our traditional population that now they've been gone from their job for 12 months, 15 months, and then now they got to get reintegrated back into their job. Is their business even still there? Like, did the business shut down? Do they still have a
Well,
job to come
I,
back
I was going to
to?
say,
And so,
especially the second deployment, because that was during the financial collapse of
right,
2008. You all were leaving at
yeah,
I think the beginning of the
beginning of
bust,
it, yeah,
and there was so much damage by the time you all came back. Like I wondered just how many soldiers did not have that job to come back to
right,
when you came back.
yeah, and I think there was quite a few that got back and just immediately started on state assistance. What do you call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so but then by the same token, I mean, in the Guard, one of the other resources that we have a whole employment section on Camp Murray, and they're out throughout the state too.
I know there were some challenges with. I think they were better. I think they had it down a lot better by my last deployment. I want to say was 2015. Came back 2016. Um, there was a lot more of those at the armory. Well, even you know what? I take that back because even during your deployment, I remember that they had the folks in the armory at Olympia to
Mhm.
help with some of that too.
Like
But
career
yeah,
counselors and and they were called employment coaches or something like that. But yeah, if you were looking for work, you didn't have any work, then you could go to them, and they were kind of tied in with local communities on who's hiring and what's the new trade that's up and coming. And so I think there's some resources out there, but as a traditional soldier coming back, I mean, I couldn't fathom, like, I mean, it's hard for me to fathom coming back and then reintegrating back into that civilian job, and then how are they going to view you as a soldier that's been gone? And I could see there being a lot of
tension.
tension, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Um,
Who who were your leaders coming through the ranks?
Oh, geez, coming through the ranks. Um,
And good and bad. Who and you don't have to you don't have to drop names on the bad, but
yeah,
those examples of like what were because you don't typically make sergeant major if you're a dumbass.
yeah,
It's you tend to be uh, you tend to be the peak of your profession, and I can say I knew you as an E6
mm,
before you had even got your E7 at HHB, and you were an outstanding NCO even back then. People knew like he's going to have the answer, or if he doesn't have the answer, he's going
mm,
to get you the answer.
right.
But was that natural, or did you have people who actually like mentored, instructed you through that
Yeah, so
process?
I mean, I think for me in my career, I mean, really started at my childhood, right? Understanding what was right and wrong, and that's things that my parents instilled in us as we were growing up. And and then kind of morphing into the military. Um, I had some really great mentors. And then I had some people that I worked with that weren't necessarily what I would call a great mentor. But I think you can still take some good from what they do, and then see how they're making mistakes, and then use that as okay, I don't want to do that, right? I like what he's doing over here, but I wouldn't necessarily have done that in that situation. And I think the more of those experiences that you're in with, or that you see, or that you have dealt with, I think that shapes you as a leader. And so I think as an M-Day guy, Sergeant First Class Mosby was probably one of the first. He was an E7. I think he was the platoon sergeant of the Alpha Battery back in the day. And it's funny, he's actually working on JBLM at Waller Hall. He retired from the Guard. Let's
I
see.
was gonna say that's been a day or ago
First
because
deployment, he did the sanctuary thing and then ended up retiring. But then now he works over at Waller Hall and he helps everybody going through the retirement process. And so as my packet came across his desk, he was like, "Oh, I know this guy." And so I reached out and saw him as I was retiring. But yeah, he was like one of the first E7s that I remember that was in the platoon that I looked up to. He had some significant active duty time prior to coming to the Guard. Was just a great leader, traditional guy, and really kind of started my M-Day career. I 93 to 99, I was a traditional soldier, and so he was one of the first people that kind of got me on the straight and narrow. And then as I became an AGR, Ed Lopez, um,
wow,
so he was probably one of my first mentors. He was an FDC guy. He had some significant active duty experience as well. And so me coming in as an E4 with 3 years active duty experience, you know, I knew quite a bit of knowledge when it came to the computer systems and all the inner workings of the FDC. And I think he was an E6 at the time. And so he kind of recognized some of my potential and was like, okay, yeah, I think I can work with you. And so he became an AGR, and then I eventually became an AGR and worked under him for probably the next, I don't know, probably the next 6 years or so, and really looked up to him as a leader. Um, there was several other people that I worked with in that same era that, I mean, I was a good soldier. I kind of did what I was told to do at the time. But there were some things that I was like, well, I don't think that was necessarily appropriate. And so again, you know, looking at the current environment and things that are going on, and then as I become into that role, get promoted into those roles in the future, can think back to those days of, how I felt of what was going on, and not kind of make those mistakes. Um, Command Sergeant Major Raymond J. Again, he was another mentor of mine for many years as an AGR. He was the battalion ops. Well, I think when I was at E7, I worked with him in operations. And then when I became the E8 in Olympia doing battalion ops, he was the brigade CSM. And so again, he was kind of another mentor throughout this long period of time. And yeah, just a great leader, great mentor for me. And I think half the battle is wanting to do well in your career, and making choices in your career to um, be promoted when your time comes. Um, schooling was always something, in our day, it was, you got to complete the school to be eligible. And then once you're eligible, right now it's all the other stuff. It's, did you do any college? What's your PT score? What's your weapons qual? Did you do any correspondence courses? Right? It's all the other things, in addition to your evaluations, your NCOER. So understanding the system and understanding what your responsibility is as an individual soldier and what things you can affect, um, above and beyond just doing a good job, right? There's a lot of things that you can affect in your career. And so understanding how that works and being mentored on how that works, I felt, Raymond J did that for many years for me. And even after he had retired, then it was still, how are things going? And hey, I got a question about this, or I got this scenario going on at work. What would you suggest that I do? And so we kept in contact for many years.
I was gonna ask how many did you stay in contact when you got out? Was it
Yeah,
kind of like, hey, see y'all later, or was there are there still those ones that you
there's
think?
still a few that I stay in contact with. In fact, I saw Raymond J and his wife Heidi, our first year traveling. They happened to be coming through Nashville, and so we were rolling through Nashville, and so, it just was by happenstance a Facebook post that I did that said, "Hey, I'm coming through Nashville," and he's like, "Oh, well, we're coming down from Indiana or something." I don't know, maybe not Indiana, Kentucky. I don't know. Anyways, they were coming through, and then we ended up linking up and doing lunch. And then this last year, we were coming through Phoenix, and it was kind of the same thing. Another post, we're rolling into Phoenix, going to, Luke Air Force Base or something, and Heidi jumps on and is like, "Hey, we're in Phoenix for the week. Let's get together and have lunch." And
Right
so,
on.
yeah, it's been really cool.
So see, when you retire, you can still meet up with your army buddies and have food that's a lot better than the chow hall that they're serving on drill weekend. That's it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, let's see, Ken Rosario. He's
Oh,
in Tennessee. We've met up with him and his wife Laura, twice
I don't know if
now.
any of these guys remember me, but I remember them, especially as a well, I was I was briefly an E3 when I came from basic and AIT and got my specialist pretty quick when I came into the unit. But um, I those they were all giants to me, coming into the
Uh,
guard. So it's like yeah, the fact that you were working with all of them and still
yeah.
getting to keep in contact with them. That's pretty cool.
Yep. And then probably, see Doug Reek.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's down in Salem. So I probably am in closest contact with him. Um, we had our second MOB together. We were in Iraq together, battle buddies till the end, and so yeah, we've stayed in close contact over the years. So yeah,
Right on,
it's been
right on.
fun.
I'm gonna be asking for your help to do a little commercial for the
Oh,
the reunion coming up
oh
when
yeah,
we're done with our interview. But
yes, for
yes,
sure.
August 9th.
August night.
I'll be putting out more here real soon. Um, I don't want to take you up all night for you, but and I do appreciate you coming out here. It's very cool that it was as close. That shocked me that you were that close. I was
Yeah.
I was like right on. Um, What are you most proud of in your service, in the time that you served,
Oh, most proud of.
or accomplishment?
Yeah. Oh man, there's so many things,
It's like pick your favorite child,
right?
right? It's
It
it's like
kind of is. I mean, I feel. I mean, I was selected to go be the battalion command sergeant major for RRB, and I felt a huge honor in being selected for that. Um, have never spent one day in recruiting, and then here now I'm in charge of all of the recruiters in
Wow.
the state of Washington. So we had 92 recruiters and about 25 staff members, and here I'm the battalion CSM. And so um, I felt that was, I was kind of blown away. I'm like, wait a minute, you want me to be in charge of these recruiters? Like, what happened? Like, what needs fixed, right? I was just the right guy at the right time, and to be selected for that, I was just blown away. I was like, that's pretty cool, right? They're looking at me as that high of a leader to go and being charge of this battalion. That's pretty critical to, it's the strength of the guard, right? They're bringing soldiers in a time of, I think COVID was still going on, and so recruiting was tough, and I felt like that. Although I was never a recruiter, I felt like I brought kind of a common sense approach to um, how work gets done and leadership and mentorship. And so I feel like I helped some leaders out there in recruiting at the time. And so that was a really, really cool time to be a CSM. I had Lieutenant Colonel, then full bird Colonel Kristen Durda.
Okay.
She was the commander of recruiting, and I had a lot of fun with window time, going all across the state, visiting recruiters and giving them some love, and so yeah, pretty.
I have a lot of love for the recruiting group because they're basically how I got to. I don't know if you knew, but they're how I got to stay in the guard. Because when I came back from our first deployment, they were pretty much waiting to see how I did with all the
Mm,
physical therapy,
right.
and they were going to med board me out. Probably at the original time they were going to do a back surgery on me, and I I had researched it and found that everybody that had that back surgery were doing worse 10 years later. And I asked if I could do the extended physical therapy program.
Mm-hmm.
And spent a lot of days at Fort Lewis with the Madigan PT folks up there. And in the process, when they put me into they, at that time, they were trying to put you with your home unit, and I was able to work for recruiting. And at the time, it was First Sergeant Lebeer at that time. But
Mm-hmm.
and at first he was like, "No, we can't afford a recruiting aid." And Sergeant Souders explained to him, "No, you don't
No.
understand. We get him for free.
Right.
We get him for free." And he was like, "Oh, well, yeah, go ahead, you know." And
Right.
and I did well enough with it. She was the G54 winner that year. We had a really good
Oh,
year
wow.
in Lewis County, and I got to go to the 79 tank. My profile, I had two options if I wanted to stay in. I could go to 79 Tango or 42 Alpha.
Mm.
I can't type 55 words a minute. I will never type 55
Yeah.
words a minute. I thought, well, you know what? Let me try this recruiting thing, see if I could do it. Went to Little Rock and got my second MOS. Eventually, the med board said, "Hey, you're good to go." And the minute they said that you were good to go, I made that jump to aviation,
Mm.
and I went back to recruiting one more time after that. But it was recruiting was a big reason why I got to stay in the
Wow.
guard.
Wow.
So it was, so some of you out there with those profiles, and you're like thinking, if if you want a different kind of hard work, RRB, yeah,
Yeah.
do recruiting.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everybody. There's a lot of autonomy, and but for the right person that has that skill set, I mean, it can be a great career.
I think you gotta. I think to be in that position, you gotta wanna. You want. You've got to want to see people succeed in something. I think it was the biggest takeaway because for me it was personal. It was I wanted as many people from
Mm-hmm.
my little locales that were, the mills were closing up where I was
Right.
from. There wasn't as much farm work. It was so far to drive to anything. My hope was to encourage people to join. Like, hey, I don't know what it's going to do for you in particular, but here's what
Right.
it did for me.
Right.
It got me out of the logging industry, it got me out of mill work. It really opened a whole new uh, set of options for me. So it was I was I was always thankful for the guard and was, like I said, thankful for RRB. Now, who are you reading, or are you reading? What keeps you sharp, or is it all days now in the hammock and just kick back? Like, is it?
I'd like to say Days in the Hammock. I'm actually not reading anybody in particular. I'm not much into to reading. I really don't even follow a lot of podcasters. In
Oh
fact,
wow. Well,
um,
hopefully we'll get you following this one. We'll get you
other than yours, of
right
course.
up.
But I know some people follow specific podcasters, and they're there religiously. I'm just this is coming up on 2 years of retirement, and we're still just living the nomad life, traveling, listening to some old rock music on the road on our satellite radio, and we always like meeting up friends and family across the country, and so um, we're just looking forward to the next adventure. Honestly,
Is
yeah.
there anything that you feel I didn't ask, or that you would like to share, especially to people who are considering possibly going into the military, the guard in particular?
Um, Yeah, I would if you're thinking of joining the military, I would definitely like weigh all your options. The military is not for everybody. And I feel like the requirements to get in are very strict right now, um, probably due to the climate of our country. But I feel that that time in RRB that I spent, if there's one thing that I learned, it was understanding the entrance requirements to get somebody in, and it's not as easy as it was back in my day. I'll tell you that. And so the automation of medical records is also leading to people being disqualified for military service. Because everything is out there now, right? So anything that happened as a child is available to see and be used against you. But definitely understanding all of the different, not only the branches of military service, and I've done many a sit downs with friends, kids over the years of kind of explaining the different branches of service. I came from both my fathers were in the Navy, and so I have a pretty good experience of Navy background, and then of course my time in the Army. But not only understanding the branches and what their role in the military is, but also understanding the difference between the active Army, the Army Reserve, and the Army National Guard. And so I would say um, go talk to each of the recruiters and see what they have to offer, and don't make any decisions until you fully weigh all of your options, because there are different things with each. Um, for instance, guard, right? There's some specific Washington state programs that are for Washington Army Guard people. If you're in the Army Reserve in Washington, you don't get those same benefits as a Washington Army National Guard soldier. And those are state benefits that are different from like your federal service benefits. And so, really understanding the program in its totality, and really getting out of it what you're wanting. some kids just need to get away from home for 3 years and do their time away, leave their friends and maybe even some family behind, do their time away, get a career, and maybe they end up retiring, maybe they don't. But for other people, I think there are a lot of benefits from, reserve service, in the Guard or the reserves. But of course, I'm partial to the Army National Guard.
Same,
So,
same.
other than that, I got a YouTube channel. I do have a YouTube channel. I don't know if you're following my YouTube channel.
Wow, am I slacking? Here I am, all hurt because you're not pulling. Man, I will. Yes, I will. Is
So,
it? Do you want to share?
sure, sure, I'll share it. It's called Hanging with the Hags. That's the channel.
Are you doing a travel channel?
I am doing a
Oh
travel
my
channel.
gosh,
It
you're
was,
you're living my other dream. Right on, right
yeah,
on.
and so it was really the reason why I started it was really to keep my family in contact with us, right? I mean, we're a very tight knit family, so holidays, weekends at the lake, or just different events throughout the year. We always knew where we were going on each of these different holidays, and so one of the issues when you're living life as a nomad and you're traveling so much is you're missing all of these events. And so, um, with social media and specifically YouTube now, I can do a video about a campground that we're in, or a location that we're at, or a beach that we went to. I can, record it real time, post it up on YouTube, and then my family can come in and kind of check base with us and see where we're at and what are we doing and what are we seeing, and kind of adventure with us, if you will, as we're out traveling. And so
Very
that's
cool.
how it started. Now it's kind of morphed into maybe a little bit more tips and tricks on RV ownership, and my 2023 F450 truck just hit 50,000 miles, so I'm getting ready to do a review of 2 years of truck ownership and how does it tow and all of those things. And
Right
so
on.
yeah, it's been pretty fun. I don't do a lot of editing. It's pretty raw and in the moment. But we've been to. I mean, the country is so huge, and I think we set off on this 5 year journey to kind of see everything. But um, we've met people on the road that started on this 5 year journey, and they're 18 years into full time traveling, and they still haven't seen
Wow.
everything. And so
Wow.
I don't know where we're gonna land, um, but there's just so much to see when you get out there.
Now, do you take time, even though it probably this may sound odd, but you're traveling the countryside, but do you take time to do out of like do you still go to Hawaii? Do you still go to other
Yeah,
do you have
yeah.
any desire to go to any European spots with
Yes, definitely a desire to do that. So I'll start with Hawaii. Yeah, we did a 3 week trip to Hawaii this last year. We went to Kauai. We had Sergeant Major Darren Duncan, and he was in the S4 NCIC position down in Olympia for many years, and then ended up getting promoted to Sergeant Major and I think the IO. And him and his wife Laura met us in Hawaii, and we hung out there for 10 days. And then my sister and brother-in-law came out. They flew home, and then my sister and brother-in-law came out and did another 10 or 12 days in Hawaii. So that was super fun. So we just parked the RV in Southern California and then jumped over to Hawaii. And then, we have a timeshare too. So as we're traveling the country and we're like, all right, let's settle down for, 5 days or something. We have parked the RV on some military bases, and then we'll just
I was
go to
just I was just gonna ask, do
go to
you
a condo for a week or so and kind of take a break from RV life and hang out on the beach. And so yeah.
that's Right on. I will definitely. I'm going to be writing that down. I will try to put it in the
Yeah,
description too.
hanging
So,
with the hags.
hanging with the Hags, right
Yeah.
on. Well, thank you so much. I
Yeah,
I
well, thanks for
appreciate
the
this.
invite, Ryan. It was
I am
awesome.
this rock.